Bas-relief has been its own kind of sculpture since the beginning of time, requiring specific skills and techniques that are separate from sculpture in the round. With ZBrush, however, new possibilities open up that we never had before. In this video, I'll show you how to take a typical 3D model and turn it into a bas-relief sculpture of the kind that you might find on a coin or medallion. Let's come take a look at how it's done. This video is going to build off a lot of tips and tricks shown earlier in the series, as well as add some new ones. Okay, so in our scene you can see we've got this coin in the background, and we've got this bull, and it's a sculpture in the round, and what we need to do is get it flat and a sort of an embossed effect on that coin. Since bas-relief is meant to be seen straight on, sort of from one angle, what I want to do is make sure that I'm looking at this from a perfect front view. So I'm going to hold down Shift while I rotate my view so it snaps to a front view. And then we'll also turn off perspective. This way we know that we're truly seeing it flat and straight on. This way we can do whatever moving around we want, and then we can always come back to a perfect front view by holding down Shift as we rotate. Okay, let's make sure we've got the bull as the active subtool. All right, that's good. Now one thing I want to do is kind of rotate it and position it, make sure it's in a position that I really like how it looks. This is just sort of an aesthetic design decision, but I'm just going to go into the rotate manipulator and just click anywhere on the bowl, and then just click and drag on the inner circle of the outer end of the manipulator, and just kind of rotate it, see if I can find an angle that I really like. And I could kind of drag out manipulators from different angles and kind of toy with the position, see if there's something that I find aesthetically appealing. Try to move this into place. Okay, I kind of like the appearance of that. All right, let's go back into draw mode. Let's take a look at this from the top view. You can see our bowl is at quite the angle. It's not nearly where we need it to be. It needs to be flat up against the coin. So let's do some tricks to get it where we need it to be. First, I want to look at this from a perfect top view. So I'm going to hold down Shift so it snaps. And let's zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so there's a trick that I'm going to do here. It's with the Move manipulator, and what I can do is sort of skew this so it flattens backwards. Let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to draw a manipulator out here. I'm going to hold down Shift so the manipulator comes straight out. And then what I want to do is make note on the grid where this hoof is coming out to. So it's coming out a little bit past this grid line right here, maybe 1/4 of the way to the grid line next to it. So what I can do is just click and drag on the end of this manipulator, and it kind of skews the model in one direction. And I just want to make sure that hoof is coming out to basically the same distance. Doesn't have to be exact. Let it go there. And maybe I'll move the whole thing forward a little bit by clicking on that center circle. Move that back so that hoof is coming back to the same point. Maybe it needs to flatten just a little bit more, so I'm just going to grab that and pull it a little bit more. Okay, good. Let's go back into draw mode and see how this looks from the front. I'm going to hit Shift or hold down Shift while I'm rotating to make sure I snap to a front view. Now let's hit Control Z to undo that and just see what kind of effect that had. See, it actually looks pretty much the same. It's just now flattened up a bit more against that. So I'm going to rotate that, make sure that that's where it was before. Okay, now let's redo Control-Shift-Z. Just want to redo those adjustments I made, put it back where it was. Okay, great. So you can see it's flatter up against that coin, but it pretty much looks the same from this front view. Okay, now we need to get this even flatter up against that coin. I'm actually going to take advantage of that glitch from a few weeks ago where when you scale something down when it's on a lower subdivision level, the details actually don't get scaled down. We're actually going to use that to our advantage here. So I'm going to get the Move manipulator out, and let's drag a manipulator. I'm going to hold down Shift so it snaps into a straight line. And now let's go down to a lower subdivision level. Hit Shift D till I get to my lowest subdivision level. Now let's drag this from the end circle, and it just kind of flattens out in one direction. I'm going to hold down Shift as I do this so that make sure it just flattens straight back rather than skewing off in any strange direction. And maybe somewhere like there looks okay. We can always flatten it more later. All right, let's go back into draw mode. Now you're going to see why this is so interesting that we scaled that on the lowest subdivision level. When I hit D to go up in a higher subdivision level, the higher detail in the higher subdivision levels actually didn't get flattened out as much as they would have if I had flattened that on the highest subdivision level. So we actually get to save some more of that bas-relief detail by scaling it on a lower subdivision level. Okay, let me look at this from the side a little bit. So we can see that a lot of these limbs and features of the anatomy are looking pretty thin. They're actually quite a bit thinner than I really want them to be. So I'm going to do a little trick here to kind of puff them up, give them some more roundness. So let's look at this from a perfect front-on view. I'm going to hold down Shift so it snaps. And let's go ahead and make it transparent. So I'm going to turn on transparency mode. And so the current subtool is going to be fully visible, but everything else will be sort of an X-ray mode. Okay, so we can just focus on the bowl for now. Now, one thing I want to do is sort of isolate the front of this bowl from the back of the bowl. So let's go into polygroups. And what I want to do is group front. So this is fine. Everything that is more than a 90-degree angle from the camera will be grouped into another polygroup. So let's click this and let's see what this actually means. I'm going to hit Shift F to turn on wireframe. And what you can see that this did is it actually took everything that's facing frontwards, put it in one polygroup, and everything that's facing backwards, put it in another. And this is just one step on this path to make an interesting effect right here. You'll kind of see where I'm going with this eventually. I'm going to hit Shift D to go down to a lower subdivision level. Let's go ahead and Shift click on just the back side polygroup. And what I want to do is hold down Shift and click in an open area to invert the mask. So we mask that off. Then I'm going to hold down Control Shift and click in an open area to bring back the visibility of everything. Let's actually turn off the wireframe with Shift F. Okay, so you can see we've got it masked off in just the back side. So what I want to do here is go to my masking palette and let's just grow this mask. So this is going to create a kind of blurred, feathered mask effect from the back to the front. Okay, that's pretty good. Now let's go up to a higher subdivision level. Just hitting D a few times. I'm going to snap to a side view. We'll get the move manipulator out. And what I want to do is just kind of pull this forward a little bit. So you can see it's using the masking as a way to kind of allow us to just pull forward some of the roundness of each of these shapes without actually causing the entire structure to stretch out too much. Okay, great. Let's go back into draw mode. I'm going to clear the mask by hitting Control A to mask everything and then Shift click in an open area to invert that mask. Now let's look at this from a side view. I'm going to start positioning this bowl so it overlaps part of the coin. So I'm going to go back into my move manipulator and let's just slide this back so the bowl is sort of halfway embedded inside the coin. And then we can do some adjustments to kind of tweak some of this forward so it's not going to be completely embedded, and then some of these other features and structures will be pushed backwards so that they're half embedded. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to get my move brush, BMV, and let's zoom in here on the tail. I'm going to look at this from a perfect side view. And I'm just going to grab this tail. Maybe I need a bigger draw size. I just want to pull this tail so it's coming up closer and kind of touching or sort of half embedding in there, but I don't want it to embed too far. So maybe I can push and pull. I'm going to hold down Alt and just click and drag and kind of pull it forward. Maybe look at it from a top view. Just want it to be sort of half embedded. Let's see how that looks. Okay, not too bad. Maybe a little bit of a touch up there. All right, good. Now let's see. I need to get both these legs kind of on the same plane. So I'm going to go down in the subdivision level with Shift D a few times. And let's get the move manipulator out here. And I'm going to do a special kind of masking. I'm going to hold down Control as I click and drag on part of this leg. And it sort of does this interesting kind of mask where it sort of masks one side of the anatomy and leaves the other side unmasked. So this is going to be really handy for moving this one leg. Let's use one of the macros we made in a previous video. I'm going to go to macro and I'm going to contract this mask. So I'm just going to click this several times so this mask goes backwards because I want more of that leg to be selected for this. All right, that's pretty good. And let's also click on blur mask in the masking palette here. Click that a few times to get a nice soft fall off. Now what I can do is snap to my side view, drag out a manipulator, and just pull this one leg back so it sort of half embeds inside that coin. All right, let's do the other leg like that. I'm going to hit Control A to mask everything, Control click to invert that mask, and let's do that again with this other leg. Holding down Control, click and drag until we sort of get just the one leg unmasked. We'll do that same thing again with the macro to contract that mask. We'll just click it a few times. All right, looks pretty good. We'll blur that mask a few times so we have a nice soft transition. And let's just bring this forward now. And we might want to kind of rotate it here. So I'm going to drag out another manipulator from this point so we can rotate this. And it really just needs to look good from a front view. So it's kind of strange how that leg's just sticking out from the knee. So I'm going to drag another manipulator and let's just move this so it's not quite so awkwardly located, and maybe rotate something here. I'm going to hold down Shift as I drag this out so I make sure it's nice and straight. And we'll just kind of find a better position for this so it doesn't look awkward. Okay, maybe that's all right. We can go back into draw mode and let me get another brush here. Actually, I'm going to get the Move Topological. That's BMT. And what's great about this brush is that it lets you move things that are separated by distance. So actually, it might be easier if I just demonstrate it. I'm going to clear the mask here. And now you can sort of see how this one piece of the hind leg or the farther leg is kind of poking through. So I want to pull it back a little bit and grab this other leg and pull it forward. So what this does is these two, even though they're close together, they're actually separated by topology. And so this brush actually will let you move one thing without moving something else that's next to it, but actually separated by topology. So I'm just going to hit Control Z to undo that. That was just a demonstration. So we can actually kind of use this to move things around as well. Maybe I want to bring this forward a little bit so that the other back half of that hoof is more visible. Okay, let's go ahead and do some more of this to position the front side here. So I'm just going to forget about that masking and just use this brush here to pull this back. And we want everything to be touching the coin. So I'm going to turn on AccuCurve here and just grab the very end of this hoof here, kind of pull it back some more. And maybe we need to grab this snout and pull it back. And then this one hoof is completely embedded, so we need to bring it forward so we can actually see it. Let's see how this looks from a front view. Okay, a little bit more needs to be done. I'm just going to hold down Alt while I use the move brush here, and that will kind of pull it forward and backwards. And maybe this little piece of the waddle is kind of awkwardly placed. Let me get a smaller draw size here and just kind of pull it out of the way so it's not so visible. Kind of making an aesthetic decision here. It's not really technically necessary to move that. All right, just a little bit more moving on this. Pull this forward a bit more. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Undo. Let's make sure that horn is positioned nicely. Embedded just enough, but not too much. It's okay if there's a little bit undercut. There's actually a trick I'm going to do to completely fix that later. All right, let's see. Try to see this from a front view. Just a little bit more to touch up here. Going to pull this forward a bit more. And it looks like some of the back here is getting sunk too far in. I'll look at this from a top view and actually pull some of this forward too. So that top ridge of the back, I want it to be in front of the coin, not behind it. Almost there. There's a little bit of this hip right here. Okay. Let's take one last look to make sure that there's nothing out of place. Oh, I do see one other thing. Looks like his ear got a little bit sunk inside the neck there. So I'm going to use this move topological and just hold down Alt and kind of push that neck back a little bit and maybe pull the ear forward a little bit. All right, great. Okay, let's go up in our subdivision levels and see what we got. I'm just going to hit D a few times. All right, good. All right, we're almost there. I'm going to turn off transparency mode so we can see what this really looks like against the coin. And that looks really interesting. Now there's one last thing we want to do. Let me get rid of the floor because it's kind of distracting there. We don't want to have any undercuts. So on a coin or a medallion, you couldn't have this horn just kind of floating up and out and then having this negative space underneath it. And same thing with the leg here and a few other places. So I've got a trick to fix that up. Let's turn transparency mode back on, and I'm going to look at this from a side view. Now what I want to do is take everything that is facing backwards and just pull it farther back so it embeds. And it might be easier to demonstrate than to just describe it. So I'm going to get my move manipulator out here and just draw out a manipulator, hold down shift so it comes straight back. We'll go into brush. And we're going to go into auto masking and back face mask. And then what I want to do is just hold down shift and pull this back. And you might see what this is doing. Everything that was in the underside, say on that leg and on that horn, is kind of pulled back. We can actually pull that back a little bit more if I grab that manipulator and hold down shift. So it's kind of filling in any negative space underneath things. And that's what you need to have for something that's going to be bas relief, like a coin, because it needs to be manufactured so that you can just stamp directly down so there's no undercuts. All right, let's go out of draw mode. Let's see how this looks. And there's a little bit that came out past the back side of the coin, so that's easy enough to fix up. I'll go get my clip brush, B, C, and R, clip rectangle. And this is just saying it's used with the Control and Shift keys. So we'll skip that note. And I'm just going to hold down Control and Shift and draw a box. And what this is going to do is it's going to take everything that's outside the box and just smush it up against the side of the box. So it's sort of like it cut it off, but it really just took it and smushed it up against the side of the box. All right, let's turn off transparency mode and see what we have. Okay, great. So we have a bas relief bull on a coin now. From here, you could continue to make additional design elements. You could put words or other pictures or text on the coin, but that's getting beyond the scope of this video. Now, if you were to try to sculpt this as a bas relief from scratch, it would be a lot more work. I mean, it might seem like we went through a lot in just this video, but that would be a whole other course just in and of itself. So you can see you can get a pretty nice bas relief effect by taking an existing 3D model and finding ways to flatten it out.